All right, I am looking forward to introducing this to everybody here. We are Sherpa. We're just moving into Iowa, and I'm excited to be able to tell you more about how we're working with communities. We are working with communities all throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin, and beyond that. And now it's our opportunity to be able to introduce Sherpa to the communities in Iowa. So thank you so much for taking the time to be able to watch this webinar. This is going to be less than 30 minutes. We're going to be able to get it through everything. So if you have any questions, make sure you add those questions to the Q&A. We'll have an opportunity to be able to get to all of those questions here at the end. And so I want to make sure that we have time to answer those questions and also get you back to everything here today. So let me go ahead and get this kicked off. The first slide here, we're just going to kind of give you a little bit of a background on Sherpa. So like I mentioned, we're working with communities all throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin primarily, but we're also moving into other states as well, with Iowa being one of those. Don't hesitate to ask any questions both in this webinar, but then also afterwards as well. I've got Drew's email address up here. We're going to have his contact information at the end as well. He's unfortunately able to join us here today, but I'll take over his portion of it to be able to introduce you a little bit more to the product during that portion. Like I said, just as an introduction to the company here, we're approaching close to 100 customers in both Minnesota, Wisconsin, and a few states beyond that. We actually just started a co-op program with Arkansas Tourism, which is a great way to be able to grow our communities throughout the state. We've done that with Explore Minnesota as well, and that's worked out extremely well. So we're always excited to be able to get those co-op opportunities with states, and always working on that to be able to introduce that to more states as well. So with that, let's go ahead and give a quick introduction to what Sherpa is. So we are the fastest growing DMO platform and really built for targeted user-generated content. We'll go into a little bit more about that on the next slide here. But really, the first thing that's most important to highlight here is that we are an online platform that DMOs use to be able to utilize to create targeted user-generated content. And we connect those DMOs with paid content creators and also local community members to be able to create more diverse and authentic content to be able to highlight in all of their marketing channels. That's really the core focus of what we do. So, how does that help you? Well, that really helps you to connect with content creators that will be able to visit your community. So it helps you to be able to connect, to coordinate that content creation, both with the local community members in those regional content creators. And it's a great way to be able to highlight great businesses and attractions in your area. We'll talk a little bit more about how we're getting that content created, why it's really helpful for highlighting those businesses and attractions, just even the format that we're using to do that. But then we'll also get into how we're doing those connections with those content creators as well. So and again, this is content that you can use in all of your marketing channels. So make sure that you kind of keep that in mind. We'll note that in a few different places, but we'll talk about the itinerary format and how that's a great way to be able to create content. But then the fact that all of the content that's being created, whether it's the written word or of course, all of the photos that go with this, that you're going to be able to use in all of your marketing channels. And then in addition to that, this is really a great way to be able to engage with your local community. So we just kind of touched on briefly there, the fact that this is something that you can use to connect those local community members, which can really be a great way to be able to create that community engagement, allowing those community members to be able to share their perspectives and really give them an opportunity to share their voice on how they love to be able to explore their local community member or their local community. And this is the way that can be possible. We know that being able to give everybody logins to your WordPress site, for example, isn't an option to be able to have them create blog posts or something along those lines. But being able to create itineraries through this format is a really easy way, really engaging way for people being able to come in and create content for your community, which again, then you can use all of that content to be able to help share that through all your marketing channels. So let's talk a little bit more about the UGC side of it and that targeted aspect of it here. So let's kind of go to the next slide where we touch on some of those points. So as I mentioned, it's all about user-generated content here with Sherpa. And really the big reason why that is when we talk to communities and we're looking at their marketing efforts, of course, UGC, as we know from all of the different trends that we've seen, all of the different industry events that we go to, everybody's talking about the fact that UGC is just a really great way to be able to get the authentic feel to the content. Having somebody else outside of your brand be able to share why they love your community can be such a really great way to be able to highlight how great your community is, with it being coming from a really authentic perspective. And the other part of that is, with being authentic, is really the diverse voices that are sharing that content, being able to connect with people that can really help share that content from their perspective. It offers a really easy way for people to be able to see kind of a trusted voice, people that they can trust in their perspectives as far as what they love about the community. And that really helps it to really resonate with a much larger audience, because we have that content that's coming from perspectives that they can relate to. It doesn't have to just come from the marketing voices of your organization, which again, a great way to be able to help share all of those voices. But if it's just coming from those voices from within their organization, it can be difficult to have a larger perspective being shared there. So that's a great way to be able to introduce more voices into it through those regional content creators, and even the local community members to be able to do that as well. So, and then of course, UGC just has such a higher engagement rate because of the fact that you're able to connect with it so much more. So, and being able to use this in all of your marketing channels allows that higher engagement rate to be able to go from your social media to your visitors guide to your website. So we'll talk a little bit more about how that's done as well. And then finally, the targeted aspect of it. What do we mean when we talk about targeted user-generated content? So of course, we know we have a lot of resources out there for being able to find social media posts highlighting our communities. And usually what we find out there, which makes sense, it's the most popular locations and in the busiest times of the year, right? And so when we talk about the work that we're doing as a DMO, the challenges that you're trying to address there isn't trying to get people to your busiest locations in your busiest times of year, right? You already have enough people coming there for those places. You really need to help highlight, well, what are those shoulder seasons where we could really use more travelers? And what are those locations that we would love to spread the travelers out to, instead of sending them to the maybe over touristed locations? Let's bring them to the places that they haven't maybe discovered yet. And so that's where the targeted aspect really comes in, helping you to be able to outline what are the locations, what are the themes that you really want more people to be highlighting, what are the seasons you really want to bring more people into. That's where we can really help with bringing in more of that targeted user-generated content. As we know here, it really helps save you time, because now you're not hunting for those hidden gems being highlighted in other places. You can specifically focus on saying, hey, we want more content created here. And you're no longer trying to scramble for finding that right content to be able to fill the gaps of highlighting all of those shoulder seasons maybe, or those events that you have coming up that you really need more content created for. So when we talk about more content, it's a good transition here into the next slide, where we talk about how much content is being created already out there. And so, as we're highlighting here, throughout Shrpa, we have over 25,000 photos highlighting over 6,000 businesses. That's a lot of content being highlighted already. And that's really great content to be, like we mentioned here, to be integrating into your site, integrating into your social media posts. As we highlight here in the middle here, that's actually from a visitor's guide of Visit Marshfield in Marshfield, Wisconsin. So, you're seeing it being used in all different ways, whether it's the photo walls that we show here on the left, site integrations with the adventures on the right there for Visit Ottertail, or, like that visitor's guide that I pointed out there in the middle. Great ways to be able to highlight that content. And then when we talk about Iowa specifically, we have already over 500 photos highlighting over 125 locations. So a lot of great content already in Iowa. I'm sure you already have some adventures in your community, in your surrounding areas. So we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be able to use that content that's already created in your marketing channels. So let's go and show a little bit more about how this content's used. Usually, like I mentioned, Drew's the one that's able to highlight that, but I'll go ahead and highlight that now, just to be able to kind of walk through how that's being used. So we're going to jump over here to an adventure being highlighted in the Pella area of Iowa. And when I'm highlighting all of this content, we're going to walk through an itinerary here, an adventure on Sherpa. And as we do this, the thing that I always like to remind people at the beginning that we kind of touched on already is that this is an itinerary. It's a great way to be able to share content. We'll jump into some of the reasons why that is inside of the itinerary. But the thing that I want to highlight along with this itinerary, that it's not only the itinerary that you get access to be able to share for all of your travelers, it's also all of the photos, all of the descriptions that goes right along with it that you're going to be using for all of your marketing content. So let's look at what an itinerary looks like. With an itinerary, we always have the same kind of structure to it, which is a great way to be able to get people in there, kind of knowing what to expect. We have this beautiful cover photo that's grabbing people's eyes, in addition to a quick description there, and a quick title, I should say, to be able to kind of show people what it's all about. But then right away we jump into what to expect, which can be really quick here, just a couple of lines like we see here, all the way up to a few paragraphs. And then we jump into the destinations. So you see we have a lot of destinations on this itinerary that we'll get to, in addition to who created the content. So the nice thing with this is all of these adventures are created again from the perspective of an individual creator. So we're getting really authentic content with that. And then it's nice to be able to see who created this content, because that helps us to be able to know what to expect from this adventure. So whether it's a young family like we have here, or maybe a retired couple or somebody traveling on their own, all have very different perspectives, maybe traveling to the same location. So it's nice to be able to know who created this content. And then on the left here, we have what to bring, how long it's going to take, how far we're traveling, all of those types of things, which is a really great way to be able to see all of that information. In addition to, we have a quick map that's being highlighted here, but we'll actually see this map again inside of the adventure. So it's a nice way to be able to see a little bit more about where these locations are that we're traveling to. And then again, the adventure photos, we see a quick preview here, but we'll also see those photos again inside of each one of the stops. So let's go ahead and jump in to explore that. Here inside the adventure, let's jump into the very first stop. We see that we're traveling to Central Park here. And down the left, we have great descriptions about what can be done here at Central Park, what they love about Central Park, little pro tip that goes with it. Down the right, we have all the photos. So a great way to be able to see what this looks like, to be able to give us a little bit of a taste of it. And that's a great way to be able to start seeing this information again from that creator's perspective, both the descriptions, the pro tips, the photos that go with it. This is all unique to this individual. So as a community, the great thing about this is the more creators that are highlighting Central Park or any of the other attractions or businesses in your community, you're getting more and more content that's highlighting those locations. So it's a great way to be able to get more content for all of your marketing channels. As a traveler, now that we're getting it from this creator's perspective, it's just a great way to be able to get, again, that authentic perspective. It's not just a Google business listing that's highlighting all of these locations. However, we do actually link out to the Google business listing, which is a great way to be able to see what are the hours? How do I get there? So you can navigate right to it from your phone. So, great way to be able to integrate both sides of that content into it. And then we see where to next. So we're just, walking over here about 4 minutes here to the Vermeer windmill. So we'll head over that direction. And we see, again, photos down the right, descriptions down the left. And we're getting, some more kind of outdoor locations, more touristy type of places to be able to go to that just kind of give us a little bit of a feel for this town. And then we're heading here to another one that we're, again, description down the left, photos down the right. Again, a lot of beautiful photos that go with this. The next place here is what I wanted to highlight as well. We start getting into some places to be able to eat. And, in the first few stops, we had some outdoor places, maybe some museum type of places that we could go to. But of course, we always have places to eat. We have places to shop. So one thing that I like to highlight with it being an itinerary, and it's a great aspect of an itinerary format, is it's really diverse content that we'll be able to bring in instead of just the businesses or just the attractions that we're highlighting as far as a platform. The other thing with this is being that it's an itinerary, we're highlighting all of the places that we love to go. So it's not just the star ratings that we're trying to give this. It's not a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's all very business positive content because it's the places we love to go. And we're listing the reasons why we love to go to these places, right? So a really great aspect of that being user generated content that's in an itinerary format instead of maybe a review format that you might be used to in a TripAdvisor or a Yelp or something like that. Right? So now we're heading to Pelican Isle. So again, another unique feature of this community, another great descriptions that go with it. So great content, again, that we can use in all of our marketing content. And then finally, we wrap it up here at a bakery. So another great place to be able to kind of wrap things up with a place to be able to eat. So then we go to the summary, which allows us to be able to find more great adventures in the area. We can see more adventures from around the surrounding communities. We can see more adventures from that creator. If we had a partner community that we were working with in this community, we'd also be able to link off and see more content from that community as well. So something great to be able to get from all of these communities, all of these locations. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the preview. And with that, like we were mentioning here, as far as all of this content of what we're being able to see here, I want to be able to show how we're using this content. So I'm going to jump over to this other tab here where we start highlighting how we're using this user-generated content. So a couple of ways is through our site integrations. So we have an adventure integration that shows us how we can pull these in, right, to be able to show both the title photos in those titles, showing a nice, great way to be able to augment our website with these adventures. Also, we now have this photo wall. One of my favorite new features is this photo wall functionality. Really great way to be able to show this content in a great way to be able to show it just as far as all the ways that we can use this. And let me just jump in and kind of show some of these photos off. So you see both the photo, the description of where this is at, see what adventure this is coming from, who created it. We can even jump off and see the full experience from there. We can scroll through all the photos to be able to see the beautiful content. So again, a great way to be able to augment our site. And you can see that this is very, once you get into there and start using it, it's very easily to be able to adjust it and add all different ways of being able to show it as far as across the full screen, multiple rows, a couple rows, show more buttons, all of the stuff that goes with it that you can go in there and really set the exact ways that you want this to show up. So that's just a couple of the ways that you're going to be able to use this user-generated content, in addition to what we mentioned about social media, visitors guides, newsletters, all different ways that you're going to be able to use the content here. So with that, let me jump back over to our presentation and walk through what we can see else with that. So now we've got all this content, but how did we get this content? As we mentioned, we already have some great adventures in Iowa. We have a ton of great adventures on Shrpa in total. How did all that content show up there? So for the content that's already in Iowa, that was already created organically, right? So we have content creators who are out there already creating content. We have users that are out there wanting to use this platform just as a great content creation platform to help highlight how they love to explore the communities. So you're already going to see, like I said, content most likely in your community. But in addition to that, we want to really help target where we want more content created. So how can we do that? We mentioned the fact that we can use our local community members to be able to do a little bit of community engagement and get them engaged with creating content. So that's one great way that we can do it. But one of the really great features about Shrpa is through this collaborations process that we use. And we have this collaboration basically marketplace that allows you to be able to connect up with content creators from around the region who are already creating content in your area. And so how does that work? Well, it's a really simple way of doing it. If you've ever done content collaborations in the past, you know sometimes that they can be a little bit tricky as far as finding the right creators, right ways that they're going to create content, figuring out the prices, all of the things that can go really into a lot of challenging ways with that. We've really simplified that whole process with over 100 collaborations we've already done on this platform. We're really fine-tuning this process for you. So it's really straightforward and simple. So one thing that we see here with the content collaborations, you can work with people to be able to do these collaborations. And how that works is you actually fill out a form that says, here's what we want to highlight in our community. You go through all the details as far as the dates when you want somebody to show up, the places you want highlighted, what the themes there are, all of the things with that. and then you send that out to the creators, and they actually apply to those collaborations. And with that application, you'll see their response here of, why they think they're a really great fit for this collaboration. You'll see when they're planning on traveling to your community to do this collaboration, their interests, the gear, the companions they might be traveling with, in addition to some of the adventures that they've created. You can always click their profile to be able to see more information about them and more adventures that they've created. But seeing those adventures is a great way to see, how do they write descriptions? How do they take photos? What kind of content do they really create? And is it a good fit for what we're looking for this collaboration? So it's a really easy way to be able to find the right creators. And then you just choose that individual who you want to work with. They take all of that information to travel to your community, experience it firsthand, spend money in your community. And with that, they come back, create 4 of these multi-stop adventures in your community. And you have all of that great content to use in all of your marketing channels. All you need to do is just provide a little bit of feedback of how it went, and we take care of everything else as far as the payment, 1099s at the beginning of next year. Really straightforward process on that, and it just simplifies it all down so you know upfront what your costs are, and we'd be happy to kind of go over costs. They're a really simple process with that, to be able to share that with everybody on that. So that's a great way that you're getting that content created. So then who's creating some of that content? So let me just highlight a few of those creators here in the Iowa community already. So here's some of the great creators that you already have in Iowa that are creating amazing content. And like I mentioned, we really streamline that whole process as far as creating the content. So we see some of the photos here that are being taken, like we saw out on the photo wall already. And again, these are just a few of the photos of the over 25,000 beautiful photos that are already out there highlighting communities throughout the markets. So love to see more communities in Iowa using this just to be able to get more of that content. And with that, let's kind of wrap things up here. And the one thing that we always want to try and highlight here is, when we're talking about what you can do in your communities, what would you have the creators highlight in your community? That's the one thing that I want to kind of leave everybody thinking about with this. So that's my question to you. And so start thinking about that. And with that, let's start talking about some of the questions that you have for us. So feel free to keep putting your questions in there. Looks like we have one from the QA already. I'll go over some of the questions that we have from the other communities as well to help you just maybe thinking about some of those questions, but we'll start with the QA question that we had here. And then if you think of any more questions after this, again, this is Drew's contact information. Feel free to reach out to him. We would love to be able to kind of work with you to be able to help you figure out how we can get the most out of marketing in your local community there in Iowa. So the first question that we have here from actually, this is a great one from the Q&A. What we mentioned before around pricing, their question is this something that small towns can use, right? Usually when we see these kind of marketing platforms, they can get a little bit expensive to be able to bring in there and use for your community. But that's something that we've been paying attention to for all of the communities that we work with. And as we mentioned, we work with close to 100 communities already, just in Minnesota and Wisconsin alone, really. And so starting with that, it's with communities of all different sizes. So it's not just the big communities. So we make sure that this is affordable for communities of all different sizes, both the base subscription and adding on those collaborations like we talked about as well. So definitely something that we can work with for small towns. We have communities of even under 1,000 people that are focused on tourism, don't have a big budget, but this is still something that they're able to use for their communities. So great question on that. So let's jump into some of the other questions that have come up as well. So does this work on our phone? That's something that, of course, we always want to make sure that it's mobile ready. Yes, it's always mobile ready on what we do here. So it works beautifully on your phone, whether they're coming from your website, clicking into the adventure, really easy for them to be able to work through, both for discovery and for being able to follow along on that adventure to be able to navigate to all those different locations. So definitely ready for the mobile. The second thing here is, where can you use this content? So of course you can use this content in all of your different marketing channels. Happy to get into more of that how other communities are using that. But again, social media, visitors guides, newsletters, there's no limit on that. So can I make my own adventures, or is this just the creators? Definitely something that's important to kind of focus on here is that you can always create more content, highlight what you want to highlight, and create some adventures for people to be able to discover, but then also inviting in the local community members to be able to do this. So it's not just the paid collaborations that you're getting content with, it's everybody that's able to create that content. So great question on that as well. And then finally here, Like I mentioned, I always ask more questions. Feel free to follow up with questions afterwards. We'll just wrap it up here with this other question that's come up in the past is, how do those photo galleries really compare to CrowdRiff? Because some of the larger communities here might be using CrowdRiff. And really the look and feel of how it works on the front end, very similar. The big difference is where that content comes from. Some, like we noted, some of the other UGC platforms are bringing content from Instagram or Facebook, which is a great way to be able to get content that's being created already in your busiest seasons and your busiest locations. But the difference here is your content's coming from Shrpa here. So the couple of advantages with that is, again, it's the targeted aspect. Now you're starting to highlight the places you want to highlight. And the other big advantage of that is when you click through to that content to be able to explore more information about it, you're actually getting to adventures and to more experiences in your area instead of going back to somebody's random Instagram profile that's then highlighting all of this other stuff outside of your community. So definitely a great opportunity there for being able to add more photo galleries using the Shrpa platform to be able to keep people focused on content in your area. So like I mentioned, though, make sure you follow up with more questions when you want to reach out to us, and we'll be reaching out to you as well. We'd love to be able to kind of introduce this individually to your community, kind of talk through about the work that you're already doing to market your community. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here so that we keep it underneath that 30-minute time frame. Thank you again for all of your time here today, and really looking forward to working with all of the communities here. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.